Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the COVID Safe Industry webinar on Requirements to Sustain a COVID Safe Environment for Renovation and Essential Services Professionals. My name is Wah Long, and I will be your host for this afternoon. With the need for extra vigilance during this period of COVID-19 heightened alert, this webinar has been put together especially for facilities managers, managing agents, renovation contractors, and lift and escalator specialists to share on the latest guideline on work processes, safe management measures, and manpower guidelines, and to share and provide clarity on available support measures for the built environment sector. Before we begin, I would like to go through some webinar administrative matters. Please note that as participants, you are on mute setting. Should you have any questions about the presentation topics, you may post your questions by clicking the Q&A button on your screen to type in your questions. Do note that when the session ends, after you have exited the webinar, you will be directed to access a feedback form. Once you have submitted the form, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials via the website. Shown on the screen here is an overview of today's program. To kickstart today's webinar, I would like to invite Ms. Sim Ann, Senior Minister of State, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of National Development to deliver the opening address. Senior Minister of State, please.
Thank you very much. Colleagues and friends from the built environment sector, very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for making the time to attend this webinar. I'm very sure that you must all be very busy adapting to the many challenges that COVID-19 has thrown at us. But I thought that it would be good for us to meet, to share with you the measures that we have taken to support and protect the built environment sector, and to listen to your suggestions about what else we can do to get through this pandemic together. Before we begin, I would like to convey my deep gratitude for the work carried out by everyone in light of COVID-19. We had to roll out many new systems and processes in a very short time and continued adjustments to keep up with the constant changes in the COVID situation. Each of you played your part in keeping works going while redesigning your processes to accommodate the safe management measures. This includes the adoption of safe entry and trace together entry controls as part of our nationwide effort in contact tracing, and measures such as pre-entry temperature scanning and the deployment of safe distancing ambassadors in estates. At the same time, the government had leaned forward to work closely with the sector and provided significant support to help companies with the costs of COVID-19. We supported companies for their manpower costs through the Jobs Support Scheme and foreign worker levy waivers and rebates. And we rolled out various other schemes to help companies with rental costs and loan financing. This includes the temporary bridging loan program and other forms of assistance. Through the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, or COTMA, we introduced legal mechanisms to enable companies involved in construction works that were affected by COVID-19 to get some protection. Although we are not yet out of the woods, the built environment sector is indeed in a much better position today since the circuit breaker last year. I thank you for your efforts and for continuing to work closely with us. As we transit into phase 3 heightened alert, we continue to face significant headwinds. First, our operations have become more complex and productivity has no doubt been affected by the safe management measures put in place. But these measures remain critical to control COVID transmission and ensure the health of our workers. Now, there is a risk of community transmission bringing the virus into the core construction workforce with serious implications for our sector. We have to stay vigilant and work together to prevent this from happening. Second, the sector's productivity concerns have also been exacerbated by a shortage of manpower. This shortage has worsened because of the recent tightening of border controls, especially on workers recruited from South Asia. This has led to increased labor costs and has affected work performance. Again, these measures are important to protect the health of Singaporeans and our community, but it has taken a toll on the built environment sector. Faced with these challenges, there are three key moves that we will need to make in response. First, we must step up our adherence to safe management measures to minimize the risks of COVID-19 spread. Second, we need to share the burden of the increased manpower costs and to secure more workers for the built environment sector. And finally, we need to accelerate our industry transformation efforts so that we can be more productive and manpower lean and move away from being overly reliant on foreign manpower. First, we will need to do our part to reduce the risk of infection to the construction workforce and step up our adherence to safe management measures. We encourage all employers to provide dedicated transport arrangements where possible, especially during this period of heightened alert. For firms who have workers deployed in construction sites, we ask that you continue to segregate these workers from those working in the community. For facilities managers, do take the opportunity to review the ventilation of indoor spaces on a regular basis. Promoting good ventilation and indoor air quality will be key to controlling the spread of the new and more infectious COVID variants. For managing agents, we seek your support to educate and manage the service teams within your estates to adhere to safe distancing measures. At the same time, we ask that you reach out to residents and encourage them to do the same. My BCA colleagues will share more on the latest safe management requirements. For firms who are performing works at construction sites, you might also be aware that we are piloting a new testing protocol at the work sites of public sector projects called Antigen Rapid Testing, or ART. Moving forward, we will continue to ramp up the pilot to onboard more construction work sites. Even if you do not deploy workers to a construction site, BCA encourages firms to adopt a voluntary testing regime using readily available kits at pharmacies. This will allow us to identify and isolate COVID-19 cases more quickly and break the chain of community transmission. Interested firms can consider registering their supervisory staff for a one-day training program on ART swabbing and supervision conducted by the BCA Academy. Second, we have leaned in to support firms in light of the increased manpower costs. For instance, we have increased the existing foreign worker levy rebates for work permit holders from $90 per worker per month to $250 per worker per month for the period of May to December 2021. But for the many specialist firms present today, the fundamental issue is that the influx of workers remains very limited. That is why we are actively working with the industry to find solutions to alleviate the shortage. We will temporarily allow new construction work permit holders from China to enter Singapore to work first and take their skills certification tests here instead of taking it in China before coming over. We are working with industry partners to explore ways to recruit more workers to make up for the serious shortfall that we now face without increasing the risk of importing the virus. We have also worked with you to tackle the inappropriate poaching of workers by imposing a temporary quota on the number of transfers between employers without consent. That said, I would like to call on all of us to try our best to retain the workers who are already in Singapore. If you lose the need for any of your workers, but they would like to carry on working in Singapore, please put them on SCAL's manpower exchange rather than cancelling their work passes and sending them back. We should all do what we can to keep as many existing workers in Singapore as possible to support the overall ecosystem. We understand that some workers may be concerned about their families back home, but please encourage them or give them some incentives to stay on during this period. Do point out gently that if they go home now, it may be hard for them to come back to work for a long time. Finally, we will need to work together to accelerate our industry transformation. This is so that we can be more productive and manpower lean and move away from being overly reliant on foreign labor. In particular, for our facilities management firms, we have been pushing for the adoption of smart facilities management, or smart FM, under the real estate industry transformation map. Through the use of technology and software, the management of building facilities can be vastly improved. For instance, facilities managers can leverage on smart FM to remotely monitor their facilities, which can create significant manpower and cost savings over time. Interested firms can apply for the Productivity Solutions Grant and explore the smart FM solutions available for use in your facilities. The government will provide strong support to help companies on this journey. Beyond the Productivity Solutions Grant, there are other schemes that you can apply for to support your transformation efforts under the Build SG Transformation Fund. I encourage you to get in touch with BCA's Build SG office, and our colleagues there will be more than happy to work with you to find the best way forward. Now let me conclude. COVID-19 has been difficult for all of us. There remain significant challenges, including enforcing safe management measures, manpower shortages, and increased costs. But as painful as this experience has been, it is also a valuable learning moment. The pandemic has shown us that we cannot go back to the way things were before. We must learn from the lessons of COVID-19 and seize this opportunity to bring our sector to the next level. As we make our way through the pandemic, the government will journey with you, so that together we can keep finding ways to make the sector stronger and more resilient now and in the future. My BCA colleagues will now share some details on the issues I have outlined earlier, and I look forward to hearing your views too. I hope that we will keep the conversation going and through the other webinars we have planned for this year and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for the inspiring opening address. The first presentation is on the requirements for renovation, facilities management, and essential services by Mr. John Tan, Deputy Director, Facility Management Project Office, Environmental Sustainability Group, BCA. John, over to you, please.
Hi, very good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for taking time out to attend today's webinar. My name is John from BCA's FM Project Office, and I'll be giving a brief recap on the COVID-safe requirements for essential services providers, including FM, as well as renovation companies. So today, I will cover these 4 topics that are listed on the slide. By and large, the requirements are not new. So if you do have any further queries, please feel free to raise them in the Q&A chat box at the bottom, and we will do our best to address them as we go along. Okay, I will first start by running through the requirements for your companies to obtain approval to work if you haven't already done so. If your company does not perform work on any construction sites, and these are defined as site performing works that require a building permit. So before your company can perform work, you will need to make an application for a general exemption on MTI's Kovit Go Business website. So there are 2 things to note here. Firstly, an application to BCA is not required if your company does not perform any work on construction sites. And secondly, MTI's approval is required only once. So this means that your company does not need to keep reapplying to MTI if you are working on multiple sites. However, if your company does deploy workers to perform any work on construction sites, then you will need to work with the main contractor to consolidate the worker information required for submission to BCA. And that is in the link as shown on the slide. Visitors and workers that are deployed to these construction sites will also be subjected to more stringent requirements, such as a more frequent rostered routine testing. So this is a gentle reminder that if your work site does not need a building permit to submit a building permit to BCA, then you do not consider it as a construction site, and you can just go ahead and perform your work with a general exemption from MTI. Moving on to the COVID-safe workforce requirements, we'd also like to remind companies that workers are only allowed to deploy workers to work if their access code status is green. And again, these requirements are not new. And one of the key requirements for to meet the rostered routine testing requirements, or RRT in short. So if your workers are deployed to a construction site that requires a submission to BCA, then they will be subjected to more stringent 7-day RRT requirements. But if not, they will undergo the standard 14-day RRT requirements. Employers can book their RRT appointments for your workers in the link shown on the slide. To do the ART testing voluntarily. This is to keep your own work site safe and to ensure that your company operations can continue uninterrupted. Companies are also reminded to register for staggered rest day for your construction workers if you have not already done so via MOM's Safe at Work system, and the details are shown on the slide. Next, the existing COVID safe accommodation and transport requirements are shown in the table below. And as shared by Senior Minister of State earlier, we would like to strongly encourage companies to house your workers that are deployed to construction sites separately for those who are deployed to work in community settings. So this is to safeguard our workers from the risk of a COVID-19 outbreak, as in the event of workers working in the community or on site are infected, the infection can be contained more quickly. And also, we would like to remind companies to provide dedicated transport for personnel residing in dormitories and other non-dorm workers when they are going to construction sites. This is important to make sure that our workers are bubble wrapped and protect them and the construction sites from outbreaks. Finally, for companies performing work in occupied residential units, these could be renovation works, electricians, plumbers, etc. Only 5 distinct persons are allowed to enter the premises to work any given day. However, if the unit is vacant, then there are no restrictions on the number of persons that can enter the unit. But companies are reminded that this is considered a workplace, and for such instances, MOM's safe management measures must be adhered to, including having traced together only safe entry at the points of the entry of the site. And so with that, I come to the end of my presentation. If you have any further clarifications that you require, please feel free to bring it up in the chat box and or raise it to the panel later for the discussion, and we'll try our best to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we are pleased to have Mr. Lin Ke Lun, Senior Manager, Building Management Department, Building Plan and Management Group, BCA, to share with us on the importance of safe management measures in condominiums. Ke Lun, over to you, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Walong. Good afternoon, SMS. I'm Ke Lun. Today, I'm going to share with you ensuring safe management measures in MCST developments. Without further ado, I will go straight to the agenda. Okay, I'll be sharing 3 main topics. Firstly, the importance of safe management measures. Secondly, the common observations and challenges on MCSTs when we inspect the sites. And lastly, I will share some of the good practices on SMMs that we observe on sites. So why is SMM, safe management measures, important in MCST developments? 2 key points. Firstly, under the COVID Temporary Measures Act, COTMA, okay, MCSTs are responsible to ensure SMMs are observed by residents within their own estate. MAs are appointed by MCSTs to play an important role to implement measures to ensure the prevailing SMMs are complied with. The multi-ministry task force from time to time will announce safe management measures, SMMs, from a certain date under a certain phase that the MCSTs needs to put in place to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 transmission. The SMMs may include closure of certain facilities, such as karaoke rooms, barbecue pits, as well as putting up maximum capacity limits and safe distancing measures to some of the facilities, such as swimming pools, hard courts, etc. Other than wearing of masks at all times when one is not at a place of residence. BCA do issue advisories, update FAQs and infographics on SMMs to MCSTs as well as trade associations from time to time. We have so far issued more than 30 of them since start of COVID-19. You can refer to the web link on this page if you do not know where to find it. So these are some of the common observations on MCSTs. that we have picked up, and when we inspect the estates. They are not mandatory, but they are very useful for MCST to control and manage the MCSTs and residents. I will share some good examples. From the photos, you can see that there are some photos that we think that they are good examples on SMMs being implemented in some of the estates. First up, notices and circulars that should be prominently displayed, and importantly, they must be up to date to the phase that we are in. For example, we are currently in phase 3 heightened alert. The notices and circulars should reflect phase 3 heightened alert and not phase 2 or during circuit breaker. Second, we notice that the MA are using CCTV and deploying guards to patrol with body cams to inspect and check on the common areas. This allows the MCSD to be on top of the situation and address any incident immediately. And thirdly, there are many MAs who have cordoned off facilities to limit usage of many of those that are done properly with only one entrance and exit point so that the facility can still be used, but under a controlled manner. Limiting the number of chairs and benches are also good measures to discourage overcrowding. So, of course, we will also observe some measures that are not properly implemented by MAs in some of the MCSTs. For example, the notices and circulars are not prominently displayed and not updated. We encourage the MCSTs as well as the MAs to update the notices and circulars within a week after the announcement of phase changes. We also notice that there are some estates that do not control overcrowding, especially children and foreigners at the poolside during peak hours or weekends. We will share more later on how to tackle on this issue. And lastly, we also notice that the gym equipment, chairs, lounges are not properly spaced out or cordoned off. This means that there is no safe distancing and is considered a breach of SMM. So let me share more on the good practices that MAs can adopt. Firstly, adequate and updated notices and circulars should be put up prominently as a means to raise awareness as well as deter residents from committing a SMM breach. The SMM notices can have red background to be more distinct, as well as positioned at an eye level at a more prominent location. Secondly, NA can use infographics and easy to read SMMs to be displayed at lift lobbies and notice boards so that people can grasp the content within seconds and understand them and what they need to do and observe. Thirdly, MA can use digital technologies such as portals, e-notice boards, or online dissemination of circulars and notices for ease of monitoring and updating advisories. Another good practice that MA can adopt is visitor record management. We believe most MA would have implemented walk-in, drive-in visitor log at the guardhouse to track visitors. We also noted that most MAs would also track the number of visitors going to a particular unit. We have seen some MAs going to the extra mile by setting up temporary visitor registration counter to ensure and curb maximum capacity of visitors and contractors. We have also come across some MCSTs and MAs deploying digital visitor management system at the guardhouse to speed up the visitor log process as well as faster and more accurate tracking of visitors and records. Example, they can click on the unit and know the number of visitors who are visiting and the particular unit in a particular day, particular week, or particular month. Next, one of the good practices include deploying security guards or site staff attending to feedback on breach of SMMs and to ensure SMMs are strictly complied by the residents. During these challenging times, we note that it is essential that we attend to feedback on reported breach of SMM and the safety of everyone in that state. We also note that some MAs and security firms adopt digital technologies such as CCTV app and to take photos or footages on the go to capture real-time incidents. We also observe that some MCSTs as well as MAs deploy electronic mobile devices, especially during peak hours to reduce fatigue from patrolling, increasing frequency and range of coverage as well as to capture real-time incidents. Lastly, good practices that should be adopted by MA should include issuing advisories, warning letters, and reminders to residents who did not observe SMM. BCA has since prepared a template of warning letter for ease of utilization by MA. So long the MA use the MCSD letterhead, they can issue and track the offenders. If there are recalcitrant offenders, MA can report to BCA for further actions. We also encourage MA to speak to residents who did not observe SMM as a form of education, as some may not be aware or informed of the latest phase. We also seen that some MCSD adopt digital tracker of advisories, warning letters, and reminders to residents for ease of monitoring and reporting to council, and BCA on non-compliance of SMM cases. With this, I think that generally the MCSDs and MA have done well with the uncertainties over the COVID-19 situation. Thank you to all MA for your hard work and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerlun. The next presentation is by Mr. Wong Kwan Kit, Senior Manager, Procurement Policies Department, Business Development Group, BCA, on the support measures for the built environment sector. Let us welcome Kwan Kit.
Hi everybody, good afternoon SMS and participants. Here today, I'll be sharing the support measures specifically provided to our built environment sector to cushion some of the impact brought about by COVID-19. We have categorized the support measures for BE sector into two areas. First is on facilitating cash flow and business sustainability, the slide which you are seeing right now. And thereafter, we will talk on contractual relief under the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act. These support measures will probably be more applicable for the facility management, renovation, and lift and escalator contractors that are performing construction works. So on this slide, you actually see first is the Temporary Bridging Loan Program, in short, the TBLP, which is introduced last year to help enterprises access working capital. Borrower can loan up to 3 million over a maximum repayment period of 5 years with 70% government risk sharing. Any business entity registered and physically present in Singapore with at least 30% local shareholding is eligible for the scheme. Next will be the SME working capital loan. This is for operational cash flow needs for small and medium enterprises. SMEs can loan up to 300,000 over a maximum repayment period of 5 years with 50% government risk sharing. For more details on the loan schemes, interested parties may visit Enterprise Singapore website or check in with the participating banks directly. Next, we'll talk about the contractual relief under the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, in short, COTMA. These are important as contractors are obliged to deliver projects according to timeline and price under the contract agreed before COVID-19. As COVID unfolds, contractors face immense pressure as they could no longer meet the original timeline and price. It is not conventional for the government to intervene in existing contract arrangements between parties. However, in order to preserve the capability and capacity of the built environment sector, urgent and unprecedented contractual relief were formulated under COTMA. So under the COTMA, we have established legislated standards where there will be legal actions to help parties against non-performance, providing universal extension of time, as well as cost sharing between the contractual parties. So the relief measures under the COVID-19 Temporary Measures Act, as you can see in this slide, will apply to construction contracts where one party undertakes to carry out construction works as defined in the Building and Construction Industry Security of Payment Act. If the scope of work under the relevant facility management or renovation or lift and escalator contracts is a construction work as defined in the Security of Payment Act, and the contracts satisfying the other eligibility criteria, then such contracts will be covered under COTMA. As many contractors are involved in public sector projects, further measures were also introduced to facilitate the claim process and provide further relief to help the built environment sector firms. And I'll share more of this in subsequent slides. So a basic overview of COTMA. It was actually introduced last year, 2020 in April, to offer temporary relief to businesses and individuals who have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The overarching principle is to ensure that no single stakeholder bears an undue share of the burden imposed by COVID-19. We have received a fair amount of queries asking whether COTMA applies to private sector contracts. To answer this question, COTMA is a legislation, meaning it covers both the public as well as the private sector contracts, and it also includes eligible subcontracts. Okay, I'll then move on to COTMA Part 2. COTMA is actually divided into many different parts. So I'll cover Part 2 in this slide. And the importance of Part 2 is to offer protection to firms against their contractual liabilities due to the inability to perform or meet contractual obligations because of COVID-19. Such events may include original delivery date 9, which has become unrealistic. Part 2, besides covering construction contracts, it also covers supply contracts. And these contracts must be entered into before 25th of March 2020. The relief period is between 1st of February 2020 to 30th of September 2021. To be protected under Part 2, contractor or any contracting parties must serve the notification for relief, in short, NFR. And you can actually, if you have a phone with you, actually hover over the QR code below, and it'll take you to the Ministry of Law website where you can actually serve the NFR on the other contractual party. We understand that our industry is built on good long-term working relationships, and there were actually concerns that serving an NFR could ruin efforts spent on building up the current working relationships. However, this is not the intent for Part 2. It merely serves as a defense against claim for the breach of contract, damages, or to disregard any liquidated damages payable due to delays sustained during the relief period. You also disallow the other party to call on your performance bond or to start or continue court or insolvency proceedings. We hope that contract parties can take this opportunity to reorganize your business and take the chance to discuss new contract terms and deadlines with the other contracting party. Besides Part 2, this current slide will show you the overview of more legislative relief under COTMA, basically Part 8A, Part 8B, Part 10A, and Part 8C. As mentioned earlier, these are relevant to the construction value chain, and the underlying principle is to ensure that no single stakeholder bears a disproportionate part or burden imposed by COVID-19. I will briefly go through each part in turn. But just to highlight to the audience here, whether the COTMA relief will apply will actually depend whether there's a fixed completion date in the construction contract. If there is a clear completion date in the contract, these contracts could benefit from this relief. However, for other type of contracts which are more short-term on an ad hoc basis with no clear completion timeline, this relief may not be so relevant. Part 8C is actually shown here for information, but probably not so relevant for this audience here, because it relates to the sale and purchase agreement between developers and purchasers, but they are also part of our built environment value chain. So it's here for information. So I'll go through each part in turn. For Part 8A, it actually provides an automatic extension of time of 122 days from 7th of April 2020 to 6th of August 2020. And automatic, meaning that no application is required. Contractors that need a longer extension of time will or should continue to submit their applications with the necessary substantiation under their existing contractual provisions. So we realized that after works resumed in August last year, site progress have not gone back to 100%. This is due to the safe management measures and other COVID safe measures in place. This is no fault of the contractor or the client, but indeed contractors need more time to complete their projects. While the industry allocated the resources on resumption of site activities, There were concerns on how to evaluate the additional time to be granted in view of the slower pace of works. Hence, we brought the professional associations and government agencies together to discuss and agree for a further extension of time. So in addition to the 122 days under Part 8A, which is Part 8A is applicable for both public and private sector projects. In addition to this, for the public sector projects, there's an additional 49 days of common extension of time to be given by the agencies to the main contractors. So for the private sector, we're encouraging to see that some developers have actually leaned forward to help the contractors by extending the time for completion. So if you can see from this article, the newspaper article, there were private sector projects that actually granted more extension of time than the 122 days. We urge private developers here to consider adopting the same approach, which will help to simplify the extension of time claim process for both parties. Next, I'll move on to the relief under COGMA Part 8B. Just now I talked about 8A and I'll talk about 8B. Part 8B entitles all eligible construction contracts, including subcontracts, to claim for half of the non-manpower related costs, which were incurred due to the delays materially caused by COVID-19. The co-sharing under Part 8B is up to 0.2% per month of delay, with a total cap of 1.8% of the contract sum. Subcontractors can similarly put up their qualifying costs incurred to the main contractors, and the main contractors will put it up to the developer. So it's between each individual contracts. Do note that these claims are enforceable under the Security of Payment Act. However, do note that Part 8B will not apply to construction contracts where the customer clients are individuals, unless the individuals are sole proprietors. So for some of the audience here, you may be doing renovation contract. If your client is an individual person, this Part 8B will not apply. The intent is not to impose the requirement on individuals, which may not have the means to bear the additional cost sharing, contrary to commercial firms. For example, a contractor engaged to carry out works for HDB homeowners will not be entitled to the cost sharing relief because the HDB homeowners are individuals acting in their personal capacities. So for public sector projects, BCA have done more. And to simplify the claim process under Part 8B, public sector projects or public sector agencies have discussed with the major trade associations, such as Singapore Contractor Association Limited, to adopt a more simplified process. So we are hoping the same methodologies which we apply for public sector projects, the simplified approach, could also be adopted for private sector projects, as this approach could greatly reduce the administrative burden on both parties to assess the claims under Part 8B. So I'll move on to the formula that the public sector construction contracts have adopted as a simplified approach. One of the simplified approach for Part B is to pay contractors a flat 0.1% for each month of delay. The government agencies will adopt this formula to calculate the co-sharing amount. Using a $100 million contract for illustration, the government agency will calculate the co-sharing based on the EOT granted for the month and sum up for the period. For the purpose of computing this 0.1% support, the awarded contract sum should be the lump sum set out in the letter of acceptance for the base works. If it's a design and build contract, it will include the design fees that is part of the awarded contract sum. The awarded contract sum will also include provisional sums and options that have been exercised at the date of claim. Contingency sum will be excluded. So back to this example you're seeing on the screen, the government agency will proceed to inform the contractor that the total amount payable will be $399,000. If the contractor agrees with the computation, the contractor can then claim for the $399,000 in his next payment claim. Just note that this amount should deduct any previous payment made under COGMA Part 8B. So similar to other contractual claims, contractors can submit their claims for cost sharing under Part 8B when putting up their monthly progress claim. So to facilitate this process, we encourage contractors to use the template which was jointly developed with the Singapore Contractors Association Limited. This can be downloaded from the link or the QR code provided in the screen. Next, I'll move on to the last relief that I'm going to discuss under COPMA, which is Part 10A. Please note that Part 10A has not commenced. BCA is still working on the subsidiary legislation, which will be announced soon. But the Act has already been passed in Parliament, so I'll actually go through what is already in the public domain. Part 10A will apply to contracts for construction works. These contracts are of longer duration that generally involve structural works and are most likely affected by foreign manpower crunch. This includes subcontracts in both public and private sector. However, please note that Part 10A relief will similarly not apply to construction contracts on residential property which do not require the permit or approval from BCA. For example, HDB renovation works, they don't require approval from BCA. Part 10A will not apply to this kind of renovation works. Next, the cutoff date will be for construction contracts entered into before 1st of October 2020. As parties may not have fully priced in the foreign manpower cost increase before this date. Another reason is that substantial foreign worker levy rebates and waivers were provided by the government up to that point. The supported cost would be the increase in the foreign manpower cost of work permit holders. This is to take into consideration that the foreign manpower costs have been increased. Relief period will cover the period between 1st October 2020 to 30th of September 2021. This will tie in with the endpoints of the relief under Part 2 and Part 8B of COPMA. Mechanism, I will actually share in the flowchart in the next slide the mechanism how Part 10A works. For Part 10A, we encourage all stakeholders affected by the COVID-19 pandemic to negotiate with each other in good faith to adjust the contract sum, taking into consideration the increase in manpower costs. If the negotiation is successful, there's actually no need for parties to tap on Part 10A. Parties can just proceed to adjust the contract sum accordingly. However, if unsuccessful, contractor can then seek a determination from an assessor to adjust the contract sum. The assessor will actually first check the contract's eligibility and the proof of reasonable attempt to negotiate before proceeding to consider the matters and principle in arriving at a just and equitable decision. For example, the assessor will take into account all facts, including the loss or suffered or the benefit obtained by any contractual parties, such as the foreign worker levy rebate obtained from the government. As mentioned just now, please note that Part 10A has not commenced. BCA is still working on the subsidiary legislation, which will be announced soon. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Kwan Kit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the panel dialogue. It will be chaired by Mr. Ang Kian Seng, Group Director, Environmental Sustainability Group, BCA. Also joining us this afternoon in the panel are Mr. Teo O Hai, Group Director, Electrical and Mechanical Engineering Group, BCA. Engineer Clement Zeng, Group Director, Building Plan and Management Group, BCA. Mr. Tony Khoo, President, Singapore International Facility Management Association. Mr. James Lee, President, Singapore Lift and Escalator Contracts and Manufacturers Association. Mr. Teo Po Siang, President, Association of Strata Managers. Dr. Sky Tan, President, Singapore Renovation Contractors and Material Suppliers Association. I'll now hand over the time to the moderator. Mr. Ang, over to you, please.
Thank you, Wah Long. Yeah, I think there's 1,000 over of us here on this virtual call. It's quite remarkable. I want to thank SMS for the opening address. I want to also thank all the panelists and the speakers. we have actually come a long way and are actually now in a much better position today as compared to a year ago. So this question I want to direct to the TACs, who are our important partners in this journey. We have put in a lot of effort to tackle the pandemic. And maybe at this point, I want to invite the TAC panelists to highlight some of the things, some of the initiatives that we have done to help the member and your industry. To start, maybe I invite Mr. Tony Koh from SIFMA. Tony, please.
Okay, thank you, Ang Kin Seng, sorry, for this session and moderating it. It's a very interesting session and what we heard earlier. I think like what we are doing today, during the pandemic period last year, I think communication is a very main thing, you know, because things are evolving and changing all the time. So certain information may come in late or, you know, not very clear and hence cause confusion in the market. So, you know, a lot of information are exchanged, you know, like guides, new regulations. So what we do as a SIFMA is actually we organize quite a few dialogues with our industry members, including yourself, BCA, so that we can keep our members updated on what's happening and what needs to be done. So for example, in May and June last year, we organized a total of 7 roundtables with our industry partners. And then after that, we formed a COVID-19 committee to make it even more formal. And of course, with you know, BCA, JTC as our so-called dialogue partner inside there, so that our members can be updated even more quickly, and we get the information directly, so-called directly from the horse's mouth, you know, so that there's no confusion. And what do we discuss in these dialogues, in these meetings? Of course, we talk a lot about many things, the problems that we face during CB, you know, and of course, after the CB, the safe reopening, you know, the manpower shortages that we face, the challenges, you know, that we're trying to conform to all these guidelines. And these guidelines, as I mentioned earlier, are changing all the time. And then we also talk about outcome-based contracts, you know, that is where, you know, between the service provider and the so-called clients, we need to negotiate on what is the fair price to pay, because during this particular period, services are reduced, okay, and manpower costs, manpower are not there, you know. We'll talk about the business continuity. How do we continue? Because facility management are essential services, you know. Where do we get our manpower from, you know, and how do we keep them safe again, you know? Of course, we talk a lot about technology adoption. What sort of technology should we adopt? So we learn from people who have adopted them first and learn from them. And at the end of all this conversation, we also issue some advisory. One advisory that we issued are advisory on recommended measures for FM in preparation for restart or wrapping up of operation post CB. That was done back in May 25. You know, and after that, we conducted quite a fair bit of COVID safe restart webinars. So basically what we do is keep our members and the industry, our partners updated with what's happening. I think that is important. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I think the FM sector is a very essential service. We have not stopped working. Actually, we are essential service. We need to make sure that the buildings, the critical infrastructures continues to function. Yeah. So I think very appreciate the effort put in by Sigma and the members and to get us to this point. Another critical system or services that we have in our buildings is lift and escalator. So now maybe I want to invite James from SLACMA to share a bit on what they have been doing to help members mitigate and reduce risks in this very dynamic situation. James, please.
Thanks to Senior Minister of State, Ms. Sim Ang and King Seng. And thanks to the support and cooperation, especially BCA, to this lift industry. As you are aware that our industry are working at both construction site and also completed live building like office, shopping mall, and private and public housing. Hence, it's a big challenge for us to bubble up these two group of employees so that to strengthen our operational resilience in case of any one of the bubble is infected by COVID-19. And the rest of the employee can continue to provide especially the essential service to the completed life building so that the lift can be continue operating. Also, as mentioned by Tony earlier, we, the lift industry, have our industry check group set up by BCA, where information are disseminated in a timely manner to all our members. And BCA is also responding to this any inquiry within this check group so as to clarify the contents of the advisory or the notices in a timely manner. So that is how what we have been doing and managed to survive for the past 1 year. That's all from me.
Thanks, James. I think you have done a very good job. Singapore lift and escalators are functioning quite well all this while. I haven't heard of any crisis yet, so let's keep it that way. Now I come to ASM. Po Siang, maybe share a bit about the MA, the MCST space. What are some of the challenges and what have you been doing to advise our members to alleviate the situation? Po Siang.
Okay, thank you, Ken Sing, thank you. A few members here already mentioned that communication is very critical, and especially during the pandemic crisis that we had last year. Our members, our association comprises at the present moment mainly corporate members. We are just under 30 corporate members, but we manage more than 1,000, combined 1,000 MCST, Management Corporation. So there's about close to 30% of the Singapore total number of MCST, all right? We did not do like what Tony had, what many this so-called seminar and so on. But I realized one thing, when we had a chat, right, a WhatsApp, which what James also shared, we also had a chat group, which was not very active for a very long time. But suddenly, last March, when the situation turned bad, members start to ask questions from one another, especially when we need to declare the number of essential workers that we need in our companies. And we come to realize in one of our members who has very large number of workforce, as many as 400, they were only given under 30 approved workers. Whereas another smaller company that less than 100 workers, they were given almost the entire workforce. And that rang a bell. And from there onwards, our members, the 30 of us, we were communicating largely through the WhatsApp. Each time when BCA sent in a advisory, it has always gone into WhatsApp because email is too slow. And in a session like this, communication, the speed is critical. How many workers is allowed to get into the estate? Whether it's 2, how many family members allowed? These are information they're sharing all the time. So in a critical moment like this, sharing information at the speed, which we need is essential. The same thing applied to last year, managing agent has this change in the way we conduct annual general meetings. So the COVID-19 alternative meetings arrangement act came into effect. That's where also the confusion, many of us don't know how to go about. So the sharing information, maybe which vendor we should use, what kind of issue you will come. So this check has become our norm. And even as I talked this morning, there were check also going. So it's live. It's live. So in this instance, what I would say that communication is important. And what we have been adopting all this while has been through the check, forming it as our main backbone for the association. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Po Siang. I think you raised a very important point in that digitization, use of technology is actually become an important mitigation tool to help us deal with this kind of crisis that evolve, that develop very rapidly. So information flow at speed, getting clarifications across among members actually is a very good platform using technology, WhatsApp and what for. So that is probably a good thing that we have all this digitization effort over the years as a smart nation. So that actually make us more resilient. So I think we should step on it in our transformation journey. Now I come to the renovation sector, Dr. Sky. Maybe you want to share a bit more about how the sector is dealing with the situation. I suppose now you are kind of happier with that, the limit raised from 2 to 5. Is that a reasonable number of workers allowed per renovation site? Yeah. Dr. Sky?
Yeah. Okay. Basically, of course, we can have more workers in a job site. You see, initially 2, I don't think it's enough. This is 2. The 2 workers go there already. There's no supervisor to there to how to arrange for the jobs. But actually, since last year after the CD, okay, there's a chaos. That means we don't know how to. That means when to start the renovation work. So, in fact, during this period, our association, like other associations, we become more united. That means we try to share information and giving dialogues to every individual members so that to avoid the confusion of the information outside the market. Sometimes some people say, oh, can open, some people cannot open. And also we have dialogues with authorities like BCA made to assist on how to reopening the renovation sector. That means it's more, at least we can avoid the chaos like this. Okay. Besides, I think the main problem we are facing after since the pandemic is workforce. That means workers. Now it's like the renovation sectors is also try to snatch workers from the constructions also. And this is the whole industry is lack of workers. Okay, so rather to sit there and waiting and seeing things to happen. In fact, RCMA we took the initiative to make things happen. What we did is, okay, we start off RCMA Academy. That means we try to localize our workforce. In fact, during this pandemic, I think there's a lot of people maybe try to change a job also. So I think tradesmen, that means we come up with the academy to train our own localized tradesmen like tailor and carpenter. Hopefully, in fact, although we are thinking of a solution in long run, not just relying on foreign workforce. I think tradesmen like in other countries like Australia, those Europe countries, they are quite reputable jobs. So I think in fact now they are getting high pay because lack of workforce. So in fact, this is a chance that can help our industry at the same time to also provide more jobs for our local during this pandemic. This is what we are doing now. Yeah, thank you.
So thanks, Dr. Sky. I think in every crisis, there's always opportunity. So I'm very happy to hear that the TACs took advantage of the crisis to, in a way, rally the members together. And I think that's a very good thing. It bodes well for the industry. I think sharing of information, sharing of concerns, that will, in a way, help us to address the issues more promptly and in a more targeted manner. So in the chat box, the questions are coming in. I think some of my colleagues has been answering them. Before we get to some of these questions, I'd like to invite my colleagues, Orhai and Clement, to also weigh in. As BCA, we have been, in a way, working with industry closely to mitigate transmission risk. Maybe I'll start with Clement. What are some of the things that you see in the MCST MA space, and what can we do better, Clement?
Hi, thanks, Kian Seng. Yeah, I just want to first and foremost to really extend appreciation to the MA's presence here for the thankless job actually to really ensure SMMs are being complied within their estates, and you act on behalf of the MCSDs. It's definitely so far we have seen overall, there's good compliance. As what my colleague has already shared, there are a lot of MCSDs who actually went over and beyond what was being advised by the government to actually they came together to decide and that certain facilities need to be closed because there isn't enough guards or workers to actually patrol the estate. And so that was, I think it's quite commendable that the residents and the council all came together to make that collective decision. All right. So we are going into phase 3 heightened alert, and maybe with vaccination, maybe even further relaxation in future. But I thought this is a good time that to remind ourselves that really to be even more extra vigilant, even as we move towards relaxation. And MCSDs and MAs being on the forefront, right? You are the first respondents to any incidents on site, to be really on the ball, so to speak. But maybe I would also want to say that to do this sensitively. So just now my colleague was saying warning letters, but I think I want to also nuance this, encourage all of you to remind strongly rather than warning, because I mean all of y'all are working in an estate where we're all, I mean the people are all fellow residents and neighbors, but really to maybe put some peer pressure, during your engagements with your residents, to really persuade and strongly remind everyone to come together to ensure safety for everyone. There are some minority of estates who actually we have received numerous feedback of persistent breaches, and that's the time when we will come in. But most of the time, I would say that the MCSDs have also done their best already, and this is and they have collected evidence and issued strong reminders and with video footages and all that, but still there were breaches, and that's where BCA will come in, and we will not hesitate to take action, and we have done so as well. So, but these are still in the minority. The focus is still general hygiene, mask. That's what we're seeing. Mask off and just having social gatherings. We see some kids gathering as well. So kids, we usually approach the parents. So the parents need to really come in and help to guide them along. So these are the what we are seeing, the trends that are happening now. I would want to encourage everyone to continue to keep out the vigilance and assess the risk in your estate. And remember, like what Posian has said, the communication and engagement with the residents is ever so important, because we don't want to be seen as being overly high-handed, but really to bring everybody to be on the same side rather to be on opposite sides of the fence. Right. Thank you.
Maybe one more question for you, Clement. I think this one that comes in from the Q&A is that during this heightened alert, because many people are working from home, and some of the renovation works are continuing, and it can be a bit noisy. So how can we work with the MA to help actually keep the situation under control so that everybody is kind of happy and able to get along? Yeah.
I think this is a very pertinent question, but a very difficult one. We don't have solutions for everyone, for all cases, but what we have seen are good practices. We have seen MCSDs who have ask for details of the schedule of renovations, the type of works. If it's noisy works, try not to bunch them together, space them out. And all these are done at the forefront, at the point of application. So the MCST the MAs will screen them and space them out. The other thing that we notice is that the notification on the notice boards where your neighbors will be carrying out the renovation, so that you are aware, and then you can make your own arrangements as well. Of course, the time, the usual working hours, keep it to those fixed hours, especially if it's noisy works. Keep it as short as possible, and yeah, just basically communication.
Yeah.
I don't think we could stop it, prohibit altogether, but I think there's need a bit of give and take on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's very important, Clement, in terms of getting everybody to understand each other a bit better. I think also giving advanced information so that people can plan ahead. Hi, maybe I come to you now. The lift and escalator sector is very special, very critical sector for the built environment. They do work in the construction site. They also do work upgrading works. They also do lift maintenance. So in a way, they are exposed to the risk in community, also possible risk to the construction site. How do we, in a way, protect the sector, because they are providing a very essential service? We'd like to maybe share some of the good things you have seen from the L&E sector.
You can sing. I think like what James just now has shared, we actually have this chat with all the lift contractors, and they can actually send their they send their queries directly to us, and we actually clarify to them immediately, and even disseminate new information to them quite quickly, and including the new measures. So I think one thing that's very important is that which we constantly remind through the WhatsApp group, that is that you must separate the workers who are actually in the construction site from those who are actually working in the existing buildings doing lift maintenance, because there's actually two distinct groups of workers. They are usually not the same group of workers, because they do not share the same skill. So you can technically keep them apart only when you need to do upgrading, or you do T&C, testing and commissioning of the lifts. Then the workers may come together, but they can actually do at separate times. That means that the workers who are actually from a construction site who are able to do a T&C, they can actually do the work first. Then after that, they hand over to another group. So the two groups of workers don't meet each other. This is something that I think that it's important for the industry to take note, because last year we had one of the contractors actually, they didn't observe this, and one of the workers who actually tested to be COVID positive. So technically they can do it this way, and you don't have to let the workers mix. So it's important. If not, you will actually just impact. I think what's important is if you infect the workers on the construction site, the workers who are working on the construction site may have an impact on the other construction site projects and as well. But the thing is also, if you affect the workers who are actually maintaining the lifts in the existing buildings, the impact will be even greater, because residents are actually using lifts, or even the users are actually using lifts every day in, day out. It's almost an essential mode of transport in our daily lives. So that is also very important. So this is something that I think we have to remind the industry that, and the industry should constantly be reminded that they should keep the workers separated. Another one is actually we see ventilation. That recently there's quite a number of requests that whether you can keep the lift door open, and they are not nobody's using the lift door. I think this is something we've clarified with SLACMA. I mean, this is not a requirement of BCA, okay? Because our BCA's concern is safety. So the thing is that as long as the lift is moving, the lift door must be closed. If the lift is not moving, the lift door can be kept open. It's actually a fire safety issue, which we have actually consulted SCDF, and SCDF has no issue with that, as long as in the case of in an emergency, that means during fire, the lift will operate. That means the lift door will be closed and homed, operate as it is required in the fire mode. That is good enough. And one more thing I think is, I think we have also seen a lot of improvements in lifts. Owners trying to make improvements in lift to counter these COVID issues. For example, some may be thinking of using UV lights and things like that for disinfecting the lift. These are, I hope the owners will actually, when they're thinking of this, they will actually consult the lift contractors before they go implement it. Don't implement it without consulting the lift contractors, because you do not know what have you changed or what have you done to the lift operations. So yeah, I think these are the few things that the industry should take note of. Okay, thank you.
So I think very good advice. Lift has become a very inside the lift car, it becomes a very interesting topic of discussion, because when we issue the ventilation, the guidance note on ventilation, I think people start to question whether is there enough ventilation within the lift car. So in a way, we have done tests, and the lift ventilation is designed to actually be even better than most other situations. So I think in most circumstances, when you are just only in the lift car for a short while, probably no real need to keep the door open all the time. It's probably not a natural position of the doors. So yeah, I think good for us to clarify some of these things here. Maybe I want to come back to this point that Dr. Sky Tan mentioned earlier about the localization, taking the opportunity to, in a way, bring in some locals to the workforce. I think in this current pandemic situation, all of us face this issue, where to find workers. And I think it's good that all of us put in some effort to bring in some localization. And I think there's probably quite a fair bit of jobs that are suitable for Singapore locals, and we should actually put in a more effort. So maybe I want to hear a bit more from some of the TACs, either from your experience as a company as well as a TAC. I would like to go back to Tony. Maybe you want to share a bit about some of this localization effort that we are trying to do at SIGMA.
Okay, thank you, Ken Seng. I think this manpower thing in our industry, whether it's construction or FM, is not going to change. I mean, there will always be short of manpower, and the only way is, of course, for us to upgrade through technology or adoption of what SMS said earlier, smart FM. Okay, but of course, going down that route has its own challenges as well. For example, the initial and upfront cost of technology implementation is a hurdle for many companies. Okay, so that's one challenge, just on the cost of implementation. But the other component of that implementation is the conversion of these manual processes to digital technologies, or actually to do this, we require what we call process re-engineering. It's even a more critical challenge, because we need people who knows to convert technology into real processes. I think that is the part where a lot of companies are struggling. It's easy to say I want to go digital, but I think that is what we are struggling for. We are trying to adopt technology as a way to resolve this manpower issue. So, for example, we talk a lot about robotization. Cleaning robots, for example, there are a lot of cleaning robots in the market. Okay, so the cleaning component is very efficient because they can clean very fast, and they don't get tired. Okay, but the thing is, cleaning is not just cleaning only. Cleaning involves, removing obstacles along the way, lifting certain things up so that you can clean the area below. Those robots cannot do it. So those are the challenges that we face. And then the other one is, of course, when we're trying to move to, reduce manpower dependency, we say, let's adopt outcome-based contract. Yes, I think we are moving towards that direction, but I think it is still an early stage and still a bit lack of acceptance, in terms of what are the objective measurement of productivity or outcome, for cleanliness, for example, on behalf of the so-called the client or the owner. So these are some areas that while we are moving forwards, trying to be less dependent on people, we do have challenges, and I think we need to really look at some of these new challenges that we are facing, so that I think overall the whole industry can be more productive and less people dependent. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Maybe I now invite Dr. Sky Tan. You may want to elaborate a bit more about the academy that you are starting to set up and bring in more locals into the renovation workforce. Yeah.
Okay. Basically, now we are setting up two courses at the initial stage. That means it's tiling and carpentry. I think this is two that setup workers we lack a lot. Besides, we try to encourage local people to join, right? In fact, we're working with Yellow Ribbon also, so that so that we can give also more people a second chance. That means to take up a skill. When you have a skill to earn a living, I think probably you can have a new start also. This is what we're thinking also. It's something good for the community also. So basically, I know it's not easy maybe as a startup, but we need to take the initial step to start off first. In fact, maybe it might not be able to help in the near future, like this 3 to 6 months, but we have to plan for the future. That means the next year, maybe hopefully not it's extended the pandemic or whatever. At least we can be prepared, you see. And in fact, I would say that means tradesman is also a skill. That means it's a reputable job. That means this is what we need to pass this message to the public also. That means this is not something like a dirty job or whatever job. It's a skillful job also, this one. So basically, this is what we want to try to come up also. So we will start off with the tiling and carpentry. So eventually, if let's say the response is good, that means we will come up more also. This is our. That means in fact we are not planning. We already started already. So the upcoming the class will be somewhere in September. The carpenter or tiling one, the first one. Yeah.
With you, Dr. Sky. There are quite a few questions on renovation. What is considered a renovation? Some of the A&A jobs. I don't know whether if you want to help to clarify. If not, I can get my colleagues John to clarify, because some of them were asking whether if it's renovation to office, do we apply the 5% rule and things like that.
I think unless people are staying in, right, if not, then apply the 5%. 5%.
Yes.
If let's say that there's no people residing in, that means it's an empty one. That means I think only safety measure. That means we don't. That means we try to keep the safety measure. For example, yes. 10 square meter. I will take 10 square meter rules to guide. Although that's for shopping mall, but we can use that as a guideline. That means it's for that. Yeah. I think if let's say people residing in, that means it's 5%. I think you can't get a lot of people to do what people is staying there. That means I think 5% is good enough already. I think it should be
So I think the other point maybe worth clarifying is that the 5% rule applies to renovation of residential units. Those non-residential, say office, retail mall, and other things, there are no such restrictions. So I think there are a few questions there. So five people. Good for renovation contractors to plan their work around. That's good enough, or I suppose you would prefer to have more.
Of course, I think for homeowner they hope to be more so that they can get move in early. But I think for HDB, right? In fact, if let's say people are staying in, 5% is good enough already. You can't have a lot of people to do things also. Yeah. If let's say people can stay in, I think it's not major job anymore. It's maybe touch-up job or some of the minor issue only. Yeah.
So very important point to make here at this point juncture is that we are still in a heightened alert. we need to ensure safe distancing, and when it's too crowded, I think the risk will go up. So I think some of these measures are there for this purpose. So I would like to urge all of us to stay very vigilant and avoid overcrowding and risk forming clusters, and that will be very detrimental to many of us. Okay, now I want to come back to lift and escalator. SNACMA, James, are we able to bring in locals? Are the companies able to attract locals? Can we put in a bit more effort to attract locals to join the lift and escalator sector? What are the current initiatives by SNACMA, James?
Same as Dr. Sky mentioned, actually, we have started training course with ITE a few years back. We started the NITEC in vertical transportation, attracting boys and girls before NS. But especially the boys after NS, most of them did not join back to the lift industry, even they have attended the NITEC course. After that, we started a work study diploma with ITE, and this is targeting at the after NS. And instead of actually the student will actually get employed by a lift company first, and then they will do their work study diploma. So in this case means we managed to attract the student rather than to recruit them after they graduate. But so far, the enrollment may be in the range of about 20 students per intake per year. That's still not enough. So we have also started the PCP program, professional conversion program, especially during this COVID period. We have a lot of applicants, but as you know, this PCP is actually for PMAC, professional, managerial, executive, and technician. But then for the lift maintenance, we only actually looking at the lift specialist, which is the technician. So actually, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to match the P, the M, and the E to a sudden change to become a lift technician. So due to this fact, actually, this program is also very challenging to attract just from the P to, because the success rate of those technician changing over to lift specialist maybe is higher rather than a professional with a master degree or something to change over to become a lift specialist. So actually, with all these challenges, we also want to make this lift trade attractive to the parents. Because previously we are in the dark, dirty, and dangerous industry. So we are actually trying to change this image with a lot of reimaging, branding, and so on. That's all what we have been doing until now.
Yeah, James, I think thanks. Yeah, I think it's a very important point you make. We got to make a lot of effort in a way to change the image, but also very importantly, we also need to redesign the job. So that it becomes attractive to the workers. I think in general, it's not just Singaporeans what you see. I think workers need a good environment to thrive, and I think it's in our interest to ensure that they have a good environment to work around. I think we are quite close to the end of the panel. Yeah, sorry, James. Yeah.
One more to add, we are also part of the PWM, Progressive Wage Model.
Yes, yes. So that will also help to provide some support in terms of wages. But I think importantly, we also need to redesign the job to make it attractive to the workers, whether Singaporeans or foreign. I think we are about to close the panel discussion. Maybe around the table, each one maybe just a couple of words on how you want to respond going forward. Whether any advice for the participants here. For all the questions that were posed, we will answer them. There are quite a fair bit on foreign workers. We will prepare a written answer to the various questions. I think maybe I'll start with Tony. A couple of words quickly in the interest of time.
Okay, very quickly. I think we should not perceive that the community is safer than the so-called dormitory environment. I think there's plenty for us to learn from managing the dormitory. So I think we have to, because of course in the community it's harder to manage. Of course, the population is a lot bigger. People has more, their own mind, make up their own mind, So, but I think we just have to be very vigilant and be more care, show more care, about the community. And then I think if we do that, I think the spread of COVID-19 cases will likely be better controlled. Yeah, I think a lot of self-discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. James, maybe a couple of words from you.
In terms of the essential service, has to seek the cooperation of the MA so that we can provide a better working environment and safer for the lift technician that's visiting the condominium and so on.
Yeah, so that's very well. Then James, sorry, Po Xiang.
Okay, yes, I want to add on this. Our workers are considered, our SWATA managers also consider essential workers. So there is this need, all right, for us to also have some testing, some form, because we are meeting all kinds of people, all right. So present moment, of course, is voluntary. So see whether the ministry can consider something of a giving of the grant, if it's possible. The other thing which I want to, to say is about this electronic so-called delivery. There may be a need for the authority to look into changing some of the BMSMA legislation, especially in particular section 1291B, capital B, to have so that we can implement more like e-invoices, things like that. They are now double work. Even the same e-invoice at the same time, same hard copy, it actually double work. So if we think it's going to be a lot, this is also encouraging people to go into e-payment and so on and so forth. There are solutions, but Tony has already mentioned that it is actually how to reach the optimal level. We have to go into that. And this is something that could be really, in a certain extent, is to top down. It's also the will of going 100% paperless. Dubai government is 100% going 100% paperless. So they are topping it down. So not sure over here, are we prepared to do that? But with this section 1291B, capital 1B change, possibly that will form another so-called methodology. So I hope I won't be taking too much, but I hope this is an area that the authority can look in. Maybe we can catch up in other forum. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Po Xiang. Yeah, digitization very critical. Dr. Sky, in a few words, please.
Okay, basically, I think I'm quite happy. I see my fellow build industry, those fellow, that means we are actually in the same direction. That means we are trying to look some direction is the same, like localize our workforce, and also we are improving. We are not seeking that to make things happen. So I think this is a good message sent to the build the public. That means is that we are really keep improving even this pandemic times. So it's also perform the SG United, the spirit of SG United. So basically, hopefully that we can overcome this and let all of us stay united, stay safe. Okay, thank you.
Thanks all the panelists. Thanks, Minister, for staying on. Now I hand over back to MC Wah Long. Thanks everyone for the engaging panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, moderator and panelists, for the very engaging panel dialogue and sharing your insights with the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to invite Senior Minister of State, Ms. Sim Ann, to deliver her closing remarks. Minister, please.
So thank you very much, Wah Long. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank first my colleagues from BCA for organizing this webinar, and also to all those who have been on the panel, especially our invitees from the TACs who work so closely with us. So thank you very much, Tony from ASM, James from SLAGMA, Po Xiang from SIFMA, and also Dr. Sky from RCMA. Also a very big thank you to all of our participants. I've stayed on because I wanted to support the seminar, but also to follow the discussions, the questions, as well as the feedback. Now, I know that many of the questions raised today have been answered, but I want to also let our participants and friends from the built environment sector know that even for those questions for which currently we may not have a very complete set of answers, these are the issues that my colleagues in the MND family are working on. And because we know that the pandemic will be with us for some time to come, therefore, it will be a very iterative process where we will constantly be finding solutions to the issues that arise, anticipating new problems on the horizon. But I think we will be able to find these solutions with your help and support. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not subscribed to BCA's Telegram channel, you may do so by scanning the QR code on the next slide. With the subscription, you will receive the latest updates on the built environment sector. BCA will be organizing more webinars on sustaining a COVID-safe built environment in August. Do keep a lookout for the email invitations. We've now come to the end of today's program. After exiting this webinar, you will be directed to access a short feedback survey. Once you have submitted the form, you will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials. Thank you for your participation and for making this webinar a success.